Well, it's just another manic Monday, it seems. Big news day today. We're going to dive right in. Good evening, everyone. Happy Monday. I am Tara Setmayer in for our good friend Mary Trump, who will be back tomorrow. Uh, Looking forward to spending the next hour with you guys or so to talk about some of the big news today. I know it's a holiday week. Everybody just wants to get out of town or start preparing for family and Thanksgiving. But no, the news never stops. Donald Trump doesn't care. MAGA doesn't care. There's always something happening if the day ends in Y. Well, guess what's happening today? If you haven't heard by now, there was a double victory. James Comey and Letitia James cases have been thrown out. They're out of here. We've been waiting on this ruling. The judge came through and it's been pretty blistering. Not to say we're shocked about this because the whole case was a mess and we all knew that, but you never know with these judges. So, a federal judge today dismissed the case against Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. The judge ruled that the case's prosecutor, Lindsay Halligan, was appointed illegally as interim U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. The Justice Cameron Curie found that Halligan, an ally of Donald Trump's with zero prosecutorial experience, that's very important to remember, and that she lacked legal authority to present the cases to the grand jury. The Comey ruling also said, quote, all actions flowing from Ms. Hannigan, from Halligan's defective appointment, including securing and signing Mr. Comey's indictment, were unlawful exercises of executive power and are hereby set aside. So the judge, if you guys have been following this, the judge was pretty pissed off about what was going on. And Lindsay Halligan, as we all know, was basically an insurance attorney. She was the new Alina Habba in this situation. She was Alina Habba part two, right? Alina Habba was a parking garage attorney or something, and then got the appointment in New Jersey because Donald Trump liked her because she pranced around in her bikini at his golf clubs and was like, oh yeah, well, you can come work for me, and lost every case that she was ever on the legal team for with Donald Trump. But only the best people. Well, there were some problems in New Jersey with her appointment. Similar situation here because the Eastern District of Virginia, where these two cases were brought for Comey and Letitia James, the interim U.S. attorney there, Eric Siebert, resigned, fired. We're not sure. There's two different versions of what happened here, but he refused to bring these cases because he knew they were bullshit. So he was like, yeah, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to engage. And he was a Republican. And he's like, listen, I'm not engaging in this retribution tour, not doing it. And most of the line prosecutors in that district also said, there's nothing here. This is bullshit. We're not signing on to it. So what did Donald Trump do? They got rid of him, installed this honeypot over here, who was like in beauty pageants or whatever, zero prosecutorial experience. And she did his bidding, brought this bullshit prosecutions, and it was rife with errors. Just a mess because no other attorney signed on to this thing because it was bogus. And so had all these legal flaws. Of course, Comey and Letitia James had the best legal teams you can get, and they tore it. It got torn apart. And the judge looked at this, and there were a couple of different factors. They had the illegal appointment of Lindsay Halligan, which it says in the statute after 102, I believe it's 120 days, you have like a district judge if they're not approved by Senate approval, which is what's supposed to happen. That's the normal course of business here. If that doesn't happen, then district court judge is supposed to come in and appoint the U.S. attorney. That's the argument in New Jersey. Similar thing happened there with Alina Habba. Well, they rushed her in there to try to get Halligan here in Virginia to try to get her to submit these indictments before the statute of limitations ran out. And the first argument against whether these were improper prosecution, improper indictments was her appointment, because you can't go and now appoint another interim U.S. attorney The whole point of this is to make sure that you don't have someone in there to just do your bidding and doesn't get Senate confirmed, right? It's like you cannot circumvent Senate confirmation. So that's like oversight more than once. Or else you could just keep doing interim whomevers, similar to like the czar situation that circumvents cabinet secretaries. Cabinet secretaries have to get appointed by the Senate, have to get approved by the Senate. You can do interims for a little while, but at some point they have to be approved by the Senate. So what was the way to get around that? It was to appoint czars. That's how mushmouth Tom Homan got to become the border czar over there in DHS because he would never get passed through the Senate. So similar situation here. And this judge, Judge Curie, saw that this was nonsense and took the time though to look at the case and make a determination. And it was pretty blistering. Some say it was a little activist in some of the things that she said, but she's pretty offended by this woman being appointed with zero prosecutorial experience. I will keep saying this. The Eastern District of Virginia is very similar to the Southern District of New York in that the types of cases that come through this district are really, really serious ones. Not saying that other districts across the country aren't important, but like the Southern District of New York is where you have a lot of financial cases, public corruption, terrorism, like big, major, high profile, complicated cases come through there. Similar here in the Eastern District. I live in Northern Virginia. And this is where a lot of terrorism cases, intelligence cases, again, like government, public corruption, this is a big, important district. So someone as unserious as Lindsay Halligan in this position is just such an affront to all of the men and women who are real prosecutors, are real public servants, who have decided not to go into private practice where they could be making a gazillion dollars and taking their talents and being public servants here because of the types of cases that come through these types of jurisdictions. It's an honor and a privilege to be a public servant and use your legal chops in districts like this. And then they usually will do their time and then move on to making the gazillion dollars as private practice attorneys. But just think of those folks and then this chick. It's absurd, absolutely absurd. So Judge Curie not only tore into the Comey case about it being just absurd, but she also had this to say in the separate ruling dismissing Tish James's case. She said, this case presents the unique, if not unprecedented, situation where an unconstitutionally appointed prosecutor, exercising power she did not lawfully possess, acted alone in conducting a grand jury proceeding and securing an indictment. So there were some questions about how certain information was obtained. Same thing in the Comey case. There was an FBI agent who testified to the grand jury with privileged information that he had access to, but Comey's legal team did not. I mean, there were just so many errors to get this thing thrown out. So it got thrown out pretty much on a technicality because she was not legally appointed. She did not have the power to do this. Therefore, everything else got tossed. Now, that's not to say, I'm not a lawyer. So let me preface this by that. But I believe that legal experts have said that that doesn't completely make these go away. It should. But if there is a properly appointed Eastern District U.S. attorney, I believe they can reintroduce the cases if the statute of limitations hasn't passed. But I think even then, if there is a technicality or something happening as a result, and then the statute of limitations happens, I think there's an exemption there for that. So it's not completely, they're not completely out of the woods here, but for the most part, these cases are now dead. So we'll take the victory, right? We'll take it. It's justified. We all know that these cases are, and I'm glad to see, frankly, let's be honest here. I'm glad to see that the judiciary, for the most part, has really been an important bulwark here for the rule of law. Supreme Court, another situation there. I mean, who knows what's going to happen in with the Supreme Court, but so far the federal appeals courts and all that have been doing a pretty good job checking the Trump administration when they do the crazy stuff like this that's just so out of bounds legally. So what does this say for some of the other political prosecutions that we know that they're attempting, like against Eric Swalwell, like against Adam Schiff, go down the list. I think that if they're not righteous prosecutions, unless you get a judge like Eileen Cannon down there in Florida, which happens, but for the most part, I think those cases will end up the same way. Uh, Letitia James and Comey's cases have gone because they're not righteous prosecutions. So James Comey, of course, had something to say about it. So after the judge's dismissal today, he released a video statement. Here's a portion of what he said.
I'm grateful that the court ended the case against me, which was a prosecution based on malevolence and incompetence, and a reflection of what the Department of Justice has become under Donald Trump, which is heartbreaking. But I was also inspired by the example of the career people who refused to be part of this travesty. It cost some of them their jobs, which is painful, but it preserved their integrity, which is beyond price. And I know they will serve again. I was very lucky that some of the best lawyers in America stepped forward to represent me. I hope they serve as an example to more and more lawyers, especially at some of the big firms, to participate in protecting our liberty, protecting the rule of law.
And he's right. He's absolutely right. And so we will take that double legal win today for Tish James and James Comey, and stay tuned for the rest. Well, that's not the only big news that happened today. I'm sure that you guys have heard about what happened last week when 6 Democratic senators had the temerity, the unmitigated gall, the nerve to actually make a video reiterating to our men and women in uniform that they are under no obligation to follow illegal orders. You guys have seen this. I'm sure you've seen this by now. It was a very powerful video. Each one of them either served in the armed forces or in the intelligence community. And they were simply doing a direct to camera saying, hey, listen, I know this has been tough for you guys, talking to their comrades there. We know it's been a tough year, and we know potentially you may be put into some difficult situations. We just need to make sure you realize that you need to follow the law, follow the Constitution, and that you are under no obligation to follow illegal orders. They never named Donald Trump. They didn't say directly anything about Donald Trump. Well, this ruffled the feathers of Stephen Miller and Todd Blanche and Donald Trump and those who don't like dear leader being questioned. How dare they? Stephen Miller, Mr. The president's authority will never be questioned, shall not be questioned. I mean, the little Mr. Eichmann himself over there. Well, since last week when they did this video, the Trump administration has been figuring out ways to get back at them. Donald Trump lost his shit and started tweeting out, truthing, whatever it's called, that they should be hanged. They should be punishable by death. But what? Accusing them of being traitors and sedition. What? Can we just take a second here? Could you imagine if any other president from either party ever accused sitting members of Congress and senators of being traitors and saying their acts should be punished by death for simply repeating the military code of justice? Just imagine if Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Bill Clinton, George Bush, George H.W. Bush, any president in our lifetimes had ever tweeted something like that. They would be impeached. The impeachment hearings would be done by now, or the 25th Amendment, because they'd say he was off his rocker. And yet, it was just another headline last week. I mean, last week was wild anyway. It was a roller coaster week between the Epstein stuff and And that and just and Ukraine and Mondani in the Oval Office on Friday. Oh my gosh. But that is a big freaking deal because it's a microcosm of everything that is wrong with this administration. How much they hate our separation of powers, how much they hate freedom of speech, how much they hate the fact that Donald Trump has to answer to the people and has to answer to other branches of government. They hate it because they're wholly uninterested in our actual representative democracy. They don't want that. They don't want that. So the unmitigated gall of of heroes, of patriots like Senator Mark Kelly, who's not only a captain in the Navy, I believe he's a captain, he was an astronaut. And so is his twin brother. Okay? Like, are you kidding me? These guys are great Americans who have served their entire lives to this country. They're the traitors. Thou doth protest too much, as always. It's because Donald Trump is a coward. He's a silver spoon draft dodger who thinks that people who serve in the military are suckers and losers, unless they're like props for him or, look good on TV like Pete Hegseth, who's a dope and a disgrace. And yet here we are. So, of course, the 6 senators and members of Congress who made this video unapologetically came back and were like, screw you. We're not apologizing for what we said. We stand by what we said. Unfortunately, the death threats against them have been considerable, considerable. And which is another, it just speaks volumes about where we are as a society and what's so wrong with the MAGA movement. It's insane. But unfortunately, what used to be beyond the pale has now become par for the course under Donald Trump. And that's a sad commentary. But they're still not backing down, and good for them. Mark Kelly, he doesn't like in particular because, again, like I said, double hero, astronaut, and a fighter pilot, for God's sakes. So what do we find out? Well, the Pentagon, the Independent has reported that the Pentagon is now investigating Senator Mark Kelly over his participation in the public service announcement video. It highlighted the duty of troops to ignore illegal orders. Kelly and other Democratic lawmakers with military records warned against Donald's emphasis on personal loyalty over serving the Constitution. Remember, they never said his name. Donald Trump responded to the video, calling the Democrats, like I said, traitors who engaged in, quote, seditious behavior punishable by death. He then amplified posts from other people calling for violence against the lawmakers. Now, the Pentagon has suggested that since Kelly is a retired Navy captain, I was right, he could be recalled to active duty and court-martialed. Court-martialed? For what? Again, I don't understand why the mainstream media, well, I do, and I say that rhetorically. When we have these conversations, why members of the administration and elected Republicans who are still running cover for Trump, why they are not challenged more forcefully about what exactly was the infraction? What was it? And now, CNN the other night, when this first broke, they literally played the video of what these members said versus what the administration and the liars like Caroline Levitt and the rest of the propagandists, what they claimed that they said. Because the argument is that they were telling these men and women in uniform to violate their orders, to disobey the commander in chief. That's not what they said. They were simply responding to Donald Trump and him potentially giving them illegal orders. And this didn't just come out of whole cloth, right? These members claimed that they had folks coming to them who are in the military that are very, very concerned about being put in a situation where they may be given illegal orders coming out of this freaking Pentagon under the leadership, I use that term loosely, under the command of Pete Hegseth, who's a shill. They're worried about it. So much so that these members decided to do this, to send a message, to encourage our men and women in uniform, especially the enlisteds, to be like, listen, You do not have to obey an illegal order. That's it. So the fact that this administration is taking it this far, what does that say? They're so guilty. They're so guilty. We see how they're violating people's civil rights every day with these ICE raids and snatching people off the streets, and the civil I mean people's civil liberties and due process is being violated every hour of every day, every time these ICE bastards go out here and do this to people. So you don't think that's going to have a trickle down effect? Of course it is. The worst people possible are running all of our cabinet agencies, not to mention who's in the Department of Justice. This is how dictatorships operate, not how democracies operate. So this is that bullshit. But why are these elected officials not pressed harder on the misinformation and the lies when it's right in their faces? CNN did a side by side. I was watching Abby Phillips' show the other night where they literally did this because they knew that Republicans who were going to continue to toe the line dishonestly would try to repeat the lies about what was said in this video. And they said, no, 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 hold on. That's not what they said. And they play the video. You literally see and hear what these members actually said. And the Republicans would come right back and repeat the same lie. They're telling men and women in uniform to defy the commander in chief. So, what do you do with these people? Like, that's at that point, it's like when you say, since you're incapable of being honest, thank you very much, goodbye. And you get rid of them. They should not be platformed when they continue to spew lies. It's when we had the evidence right in front of us to dispute it. It's so frustrating, guys. It's so frustrating. But they're still trying to put this out there. But you know what? People are finally starting to say, well, listen, this is a bridge too far. We've seen this a couple times now recently. That's why Donald Trump is like spiraling. What do the kids today say? Crashing out. You see Trump starting to crash out in ways we haven't seen in quite some time. And it's because multiple things he's actually getting challenged and he's not winning. He's not, he lost the Epstein argument with the discharge petition and all that. So he was crashing out over that. He's not getting his way on a bunch of things, and it's the economy is terrible. His poll numbers are in the tank. Like, it's not been a good couple weeks for Mr. Trump. All self-inflicted, of course. So he's flipping out, and now then he goes on a late night Twitter rant about punishing members of Congress, but for speaking out about the actual military code of justice. And and then this. Now they want to look and investigate. Oh, let's investigate them. The intimidation, people are like, this is too much. Congressman Michael McCall, who I believe is retiring. Michael McCall, who's been around forever. When I was a Hill staffer, my boss, who I worked for, used to hang out with Michael McCall all the time because they were on the Foreign Affairs Committee together. And I've spent many of dinners or happy hours or late nights, different things, up on the Capitol Hill with my boss, old boss, and Michael McCall and those guys. Been around forever. Michael McCall's not a MAGA guy. Okay. He's a traditional establishment Republican who kind of kept his head down and would say what he needed to say to go along and get along. He's also married to, I think his wife is an heir to the Clear Channel fortune. So they're quite wealthy and they'll be all right if he leaves Congress. It's not fun anymore. We're going to talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene in a second and her decision to leave Congress. It kind of ties into this a little bit. But Michael McCall at least came out and was like, yeah, that's not okay. And there were a handful of other Republicans who were like, yeah, this is not okay. Like, no. But only a handful. What? Where's the majority of the caucus? There should be overwhelming condemnation of Donald Trump doing this. Overwhelming, but there's not because they're all a bunch of fucking cowards. And that's partially how we got here. But more and more of them are starting to make some calculated decisions that they don't want to put up with Trump in this bullshit because he's not governing. It's not going great. It's not. So when you've got some Republicans even saying, this is not okay, like, what are you doing? You've got a problem. Trump is losing his grip on MAGA. Now, if the Pentagon goes forward with this is a highly unprecedented move against a sitting senator on top of that. Highly unusual. Jamie Raskin, one of our favorite congressmen, he said he's a constitutional scholar also. So when Jamie Raskin speaks on things like this, I listen. He said prosecuting Mark Kelly for speech connected to his duties would violate legislative immunity protections. So not only is it just bullshit in general, but it would also violate their immunity as I think it was part of the speech and debate clause, but their immunity as elected officials. So, ABC News 15 out there in Arizona, where Mark Kelly is a senator, they aired a statement from Kelly, who is defiant as ever, and I love it. And this is what he had to say.
I served in the United States Navy for 25 years under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, the UCMJ. It's actually required that you do not follow illegal orders. And this president has gone really close to crossing that line, if not crossed it.
In response to the president's message, Senator Chuck Schumer has requested enhanced security for those Democrats.
I have asked the Capitol Police to give special protection and keep an eye on Slotkin and Kelly as well, because you got to worry after the president says these things.
The group has now issued a defiant statement declaring in part, "In these moments, fear is contagious, but so is courage. We will continue to lead and will not be intimidated."
And that's the exact right response. But again, what a shame. What a sad commentary that in 2025, this is where we are. However, there's hope. I still have hope. We saw what happened a couple weeks ago. The American people are starting to wake up. Democrats, as long as they don't screw this up, are very well positioned to take back the House in 2026, but they cannot take their foot off the gas, as I always say. Offense, 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 offense. You got to keep them down kick them while they're down and keep it moving, because you can't let them back up. You cannot let them off the mat. Do not let the Republicans off the hook. They are in disarray right now, absolute disarray for a myriad of reasons. And this is when they're most vulnerable. Donald Trump hasn't been this vulnerable since January 6th. So now's the time to strike. Now is the time. Well, speaking of that, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Friday night shocked the world with her video announcement that she's planning to resign from Congress in January. Now, last time I guest hosted, we were talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene and the fact that she was actually on the right side of the Epstein issue. But we are all very skeptical of her. We are not, she's not invited to the barbecue, as I keep saying. We have not completely forgiven her for being a horrible, terrible person, because she still is. Just because she happened to do the right thing on Epstein and has decided to actually call out Trump and Republican leaders, that's great. But it does not absolve her from many transgressions. She's still who she is. But the enemy of my enemy is my friend in political warfare here. So we will use her politically where it helps our side. And where it helps our side with Marjorie Taylor Greene in this huge spat with Donald Trump, this huge rift, is that it's a window into a fracturing MAGA movement and into like I said a few minutes ago, into how Donald Trump is starting to lose his grip, which at one point was a freaking death grip, man. He's starting to lose his grip on MAGA. And as we're starting to see these different branches of MAGA emerge, that's only when they see weakness. Marjorie Taylor Greene is not dumb. No matter how she acts or dresses or what she sounds like, she's not dumb. She's a very cunning political operative, and wealthy too, by the way. Many of you may not know that, but she's a millionaire, and she has a family construction business, and I don't know if she got that in the divorce or what happened, but she's a millionaire. She's going to be just fine. But when she decided to break with Trump on the Epstein stuff, there was clearly a calculated strategy here for her. She doesn't do anything without a plan. Okay. And so whatever was in it for her, we'll probably get the full story soon. But when Donald Trump decided to throw her under the bus and call her a traitor now. Everybody's a traitor. You notice this? Anyone who has anything critical to say or isn't completely on their knees for Donald Trump all day, all the time, they're traitors. Believe me, they use these words on purpose. This is all very purposeful to create an environment so that the crazies look at everyone as an enemy that's a threat to them. Because a traitor is like one of the worst things you could possibly be. The punishment is death in this country, right? So they don't just use these words randomly without thinking about the consequences of using them. Words matter. But the fact that Donald Trump called Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has been one of the most loyal, wackiest MAGA people out there, she defended him on January 6th. She was a QAnon crazy. She's been America first. Oh, no more money for foreign wars. I mean, she was, as she says, MAGA before lots of other people. She didn't need Donald Trump to win her district. And she's been consistent with what MAGA claims that they are. Donald Trump hasn't. So by her calling out the hypocrisy of people inside MAGA, including Donald Trump himself, is holding up a mirror coming from one of their own. We can say it all day. The MAGAs aren't going to listen to us because we all have Trump derangement syndrome, remember? They're not going to listen to us, but they're going to listen to her. She's one of them. So that's like how the cult breaks. When one of yours who you trust, who you think, well, wait a minute, if she's stepping away, if she's saying these things, why? So this is a very fascinating dynamic happening right now. I'm fascinated by this whole thing. I still don't trust her. And she's not invited to Thanksgiving dinner. She's still not welcome at the barbecue. But I am fascinated by how this is going to go. Who is she going to team up with? Is she legitimately now scared and doesn't want to deal with the threats and all that? I mean, maybe. I doubt it. Okay. Is she really that fragile? I mean, those of us that have been speaking out against Donald Trump for almost a decade, we get threats all the time. I know Mary does. I certainly have. I've had the FBI involved in threats against me. If I were to, I can't even repeat some of the awful, horrible things that have been sent to me and threats against my life. I mean, I don't care. Words don't bother me. It's only if there are credible threats, which there was back during the first term. But like Jasmine Crockett and others who have to live through this every day, and Marjorie Taylor Greene was part of that whole group of people that did that. And yes, so she's been saying all the right things lately, but there's always an ulterior motive here. Let's just be honest, right? So let's say she's like really, she can't take the heat anymore. She's like, I don't want, I'm done in my family, blah, blah. Okay. However, I suspect that she sees the writing on the wall. She doesn't want to deal with having to deal with all of the incoming from Donald Trump while she's a member of Congress. So now she's going to free herself up as a private citizen after she qualifies for her pension, by the way. I'm sure you guys have heard 5 years you serve as a member of Congress, you qualify for your congressional pension. So she's resigning one day after she qualifies for her pension. Like I said, there's always an angle with this woman. But I think that because if you listen to the 10-minute video, 11-minute video, the first 8-9 minutes is her bullshit, right? She's not changed. She has not changed. She still has those views. The last 2 minutes is where she eviscerates Donald Trump and Republican leadership and talks about the hypocrisy. Those 2 minutes are worth listening to because she's not wrong. She's not wrong. And her deciding to resign from Congress may be the dam that finally breaks here, because the Daily Beast reported today that there are several other high-profile potential members of Congress getting ready to resign, that they've had it. They said, do not be surprised if you start to see more and more members of Congress say, fuck this, we're out, because they've been treated like shit. They are pissed off at the White House. They said in the story in the Daily Beast, of course, everyone's anonymous, but they're saying, quoting high-ranking senior House Republicans, saying that they're pissed at the White House, that they're all a bunch of arrogant people over there. They disrespect them. They treat them like garbage. And all of these House members have been loyal. They do Trump's bidding. And this is how they get treated. And if he comes from Marjorie Taylor Greene like that, imagine how quickly he'll turn on just the rank and file people, because he has no loyalty. He expects absolute loyalty from everybody else, but we all know he's not loyal to anybody. He'll throw everybody under the bus because he's a malignant narcissist. He's a piece of shit who doesn't care about anyone. He'll throw his own kids under the bus, even Ivanka at one point if he had to. So we already know this. Mary has talked about this too. So they're like, why am I staying in Congress? We're going to get shellacked in the midterms. Mike Johnson's going to lose his gavel. Democrats are probably going to impeach Trump. He's going to continue to do crazier and crazier things because he's a lame duck. And why are we're going to have to be forced to now defend that? Or and if we don't defend it, then he's going to send his mob after us. Fuck this. We're out. So let's see how many more people say we've had enough. But this all speaks to what I said earlier. This is the weakening of Donald Trump's grip on MAGA. And the more that they are fighting each other, the less time they can spend on fighting Democrats. Where Democrats need to be unified in their messaging, unified in their affordability messaging and healthcare, and being the adults in the room, saying to the American people, okay, are you tired of what a full MAGA government looks like? Are you tired of that? Because I don't think your life is any better. Is it any better? Doesn't seem like it. So we're here to help make American lives better. And we're going to govern like adults and honor the Constitution and not snatch people off the street. We're not going to brag about building gilded ballrooms while people are standing on food bank lines. We're not going to shut the government down. We're not going to let rank corruption just blatantly get away with, running rampant and misusing government resources. Just go down the line. Go down the line. We're not going to just go and, attack our allies and randomly put tariffs on things and make your lives more expensive. We're actually going to work on X, Y, and Z to make your life better. The midterms write themselves here, as long as Democrats can stay on the up and up and they don't screw it up. But that's what we're here for, right? We're here to help give advice, inform you guys to keep the Democrats in line and on point. On point. One other thing about Marjorie Taylor Greene and like what I was saying about the Republicans, I just want to make this point too about Mike Johnson, a speaker. He's been a terrible speaker. All he has been an angry little Keebler elf carrying Donald Trump's water on everything. He has been an absolutely terrible speaker when it comes to actually running the House of Representatives. They've accomplished virtually nothing. And even his own rank and file members are annoyed at him too. So the beef between Marjorie Taylor Greene and Mike Johnson is real, but other members actually agreed with her when she was criticizing them. They were quietly agreeing with her. So of course, leave it to the woman to stand up again, with these little, limp dick men that are too scared to say anything. Of course, it's the women that stand up, right or wrong. And Mike Johnson, so this whole discharge petition thing that happened, that finally got the Epstein file vote, most people never heard of the discharge petition maneuver. Now, I was a Hill staffer for 7 years, so I'm familiar with it. But did you guys know, and I didn't even realize this, and I'm pretty plugged in, there were 5 discharge petitions under Mike Johnson since he's been speaker. 5. Discharge petitions almost never happen. They are a rare parliamentary maneuver to get around an intransigent Speaker of the House who won't bring legislation to the floor. 5. That's more than all of the discharge petitions that have been successfully brought in the last 30 years. What does that say? That he is more interested in running cover for Donald Trump than he is actually doing the business of the House of Representatives. And these people are getting tired of it. So that's no good. That's no good. The clock is ticking on him too. So these are all the dynamics that we need to look out for going into 2026. There's a lot happening. And Marjorie Taylor Greene might be trying to convince people, oh, she's not going to run for president. She has no higher office aspirations. Bullshit. Watch her and who she's aligned with the America First agenda. Those are the most awful ones. the Nick Fuentes people and Tucker Carlson and all those guys. They have beef with like the Charlie Kirk wing of the MAGA movement and the Christian nationalists and like the Gilead guys, like what they want to do. Like and then you got the tech bros, right? You've got the Peter Thiels and the Curtis Yarvin types that want to turn us all into biodiesel if we're not compliant or useful in their network states. There's a lot happening here. And while they're all fighting each other, while the internecine warfare happens, Democrats need to stay focused on affordability and making American lives better because MAGA has turned this country into chaos. Donald Trump is nothing but a chaos agent, and anyone who defends it should pay the price for it electorally. Same thing with the Epstein files. Marjorie Taylor Greene brought all this on her because she stood up for the Epstein survivors. And kudos to her for that, at least. But why? Like, why should being on the side of survivors versus being a pedophile protector even be controversial at this point? It shouldn't be. I didn't have that on my bingo card, honestly. Anybody else? Did anybody else have that on their bingo card? Like, that's the choice you have to make. Either you're a pedophile protector, and that means protecting Donald Trump and his people who are protecting the pedophile people, or you're on the side of survivors who were raped and trafficked as children and young girls. Like, what? Should be a no freaking brainer. Well, as you guys know, I am, besides being a guest host for Mary, I run the Seneca Project. I co-founded the Seneca Project last year. We are a women-led organization. We are a content organization. And there was no way we were going to let the Epstein conversation go by without putting something out from the Seneca Project. So we put together a video. It's called America is Watching. So we wanted to make sure that just because the Epstein file vote happened, which was a small victory and an important one, especially for the survivors, we still have yet to see the actual files. And Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche and all those other people at the Department of Justice and the FBI are going to continue to run cover. You have freaking Megyn Kelly out here parsing words and definitions about, well, we liked, younger, barely legal girls, but not 8-year-olds. What? Shame on her. Okay. Shame on her. That would have been career ending for anybody else. Could you imagine? My God, Megyn Kelly, how far have you fallen? So we decided after all of that, we wanted to put something out that keeps these people on notice. America is watching, and we will never forget who protected pedophiles. Take a look at our new video out right now.
I was recruited in 2004. I was 17 years old. It was full-blown sexual abuse. There are 1,000 of us.
Our voices are real.
This was me at 14 years old.
I was only 14.
The Epstein files are not about loyalty to any one political party.
Shame on any elected official who obstructs truth and justice for the American people.
The president's got the power to release the Epstein file right now.
I believe he's trying to protect friends and donors.
The massive distraction by the Democrats.
I am traumatized. I am not stupid.
The House voted 427 to 1.
The bill is passed.
The whole thing is a hoax.
I'm deeply disappointed in this outcome.
Jeffrey Epstein was not a pedophile, but he liked 15-year-old girls.
We want the whole truth to come out.
And when it comes out, this country is really going to have a moral reckoning.
Shout out to our editors, the Atlas Creative Collective, and our collaboration with them on that. People need to remember that we are watching. America is watching. We will not forget who protected these people, because Ghislaine Maxwell is living it up, okay, in Club Fed in Texas, and may actually get a commutation. Donald Trump is running around throwing $1 million a plate fundraisers and building a gilded ballroom. And I just saw reports today that he's now going to work with Jack Nicklaus to refurbish the presidential golf course at Andrews Air Force Base. Are you fucking kidding me? People can't afford their grocery bills. They can't afford their electricity. They've got MAGA people out here telling on Fox News saying, "Well, you don't need to buy grandma's slippers. You don't have to spend all that money for Christmas." What? This is what? The war on Christmas MAGA edition? What are we doing here? So, more to come from Seneca, and thank you if you guys want to support us. Please, I see that there's in the chat some folks have asked senecaproject.us. We are run by donations. We are a super PAC, so thank you for those who do support us. That's what keeps us going, and that's where your money goes to make hard-hitting messages and filling the void where others will not. We're also helping Afton Ben down there in Tennessee 7 in her race, which is 1 week away from December 2nd, I believe is the last day. Down there in Tennessee 7, we have an ad running down there about how Donald Trump has betrayed the military. So doing what we can do where we can do it. Finally, before I take questions, I don't know if you guys have heard, but X, Twitter, whatever, has a feature now where you can have a location thing. It's like a locator of where the account originated from. And when they turned it on, guess what we found out? We found out that a number of huge MAGA accounts that were supposed to be posing as grassroots American conservatives were actually operating out of foreign countries. God, are we shocked? Like, are we shocked? Some of the countries where these accounts have originated: Nigeria, India, Thailand, parts of Eastern Europe, and Russia. We all know that this troll farm stuff has been an international cabal for years. Ever since the Mueller report, we knew what Russia was doing. And then other foreign actors got into the act because they saw how easy it was to sow dissension within American culture and how they could use social media to do it. And here we are, the America First people. They're based out of the country. Nigeria, India, Thailand, Russia, parts of Eastern Europe. Now, the tool, which launched on Friday, it only was up for a couple hours, and then it was like, oh shit, I think we better turn this off. The Guardian reported immediately after its release, users started uncovering prominent right-wing personalities whose bios emphasized their American identities, but were actually based overseas. Yeah, pretty rich, isn't it? Par for the course. What I said, what used to be beyond the pale is now par for the course. All right, time for some questions. Let's do it, Lexi. Oh, wait, I have to make it bigger. I don't have my glasses. Is there any crime? Oh, is there any crime Trump is not capable of committing? Is that what it says? I should have gotten my glasses. I think I can. There we go. Is there any crime Trump is not capable of committing? I mean, well, according to the Supreme Court, if it's in office, then it's considered an official act. He has immunity, which was part of the danger of that ruling and why so many of us were aghast at the Supreme Court's decision to do that, because he's acting like someone who's never going to be held accountable and who's never leaving. But we're all here to make sure that that doesn't happen. Next one. Midas Cheryl. Gifted 1 Mary Trump Media membership. Thank you, Midas Cheryl. We like that. Michael Easterwoods. Do you still do any shows with Rick Wilson? No, I do not. I have no affiliation with the Lincoln Project and have not since June of 2024. I started the Seneca Project for a reason. Midas Cheryl. Tara, glad to see you here again. Oh, thank you. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you guys. I know I'm not Mary, and I know people go, oh no, where's Mary? But I'm happy to step in where I can. Mary's been super supportive of Seneca, and I love her for that. She's on our advisory board, and we are all in this together. And Mary's fine. I don't know if some people were asking, is Mary okay? She has a speaking engagement tonight, so So she's fine. Kendra USA 1985 super sticker 99 cents. Thank you, Kendra, for being a loyal supporter. Ghost, forgive my if I mispronounce what's happening. I don't have my glasses. Looks like it says Ghost Year 59. Thank you for everything, Tara. Love your hat. Oh, thank you. You like my Slay All Day hat? Okay. Can I do a shameless plug? So I also author Uncompromised over at Substack. I've been building my Substack community over there, and folks like a lot of the shirts and things that I wear, my hats. And so I have developed my own merch line for Uncompromised. And Slay All Day, this is one of my merch hats, just like my shirt that I'm wearing that says Bold and Unbothered. It says Bold and Unbothered. This is one of my t-shirts. It has a bunch. The merch site is going live tonight. And for if you're a paid subscriber of mine over at Substack, you will get the first look and you will get a discount to get the merch. And before everybody else, before it goes live to everyone. So I have all kinds of cool merch over there, and my Slay All Day hat is one of them. I have one that was inspired by the Epstein survivors and Tish James. Actually, the t-shirt says "Fierce, Fearless, and Free." It's featured right on the front page. Silence is not an option. It's another one. Something I say all the time. The defense wins championships, but offense wins elections. So there's a lot of cool offerings that's going to be over there on my Uncompromised merch site. So if you're a subscriber to my Substack, you will get first dibs on that. So thank you. Okay, Zella Joey, $10. Am I the only one highly suspicious of Donald Trump's copacetic behavior with Mamdani? Thank you for the $10. Mary Trump Media appreciates that. And that whole love fest on Friday was something to behold. And you know what? Donald Trump knows who he can bully and who he can't. And he was not going to bully Mamdani. Nope. I think he actually respects him because they're cut from similar cloths as being performative showmen and kind of coming across as people who are champions of the little guy. So that was interesting. And I will say this, as a political communications expert of 30 years and someone who's worked on campaigns and has made a career out of polycom, what Trump just did to the Republicans going into midterms was completely undercut using Mamdani as the boogeyman. Elise Stefanik was like, we're going to have to agree to disagree. Another example of Donald Trump losing his grip, because she was another one who's been on her knees with Trump for years now, but her whole career changed who she was to be Donald Trump's minion, and she is broken with him on Mamdani, calling him a terrorist and all that. So, yeah, he's full of shit. And so that just undercut a lot of their, because if I'm a Democrat and they try to use Mamdani as like a albatross in my district, I'm just going to show video of Donald Trump praising him and lovingly looking at him. I mean, I think J.D. Vance was jealous. He doesn't even look at Melania like that, for God's sakes. Okay, Elizabeth Throw 5960. Thank you for the $5. And Tara, thanks for hosting today. Do you think the Republican Party will survive this regime? And if not, what happens next? Well, again, my pleasure. And I don't think the Republican Party has survived it already. I quit. A lot of people who were good, normal, sane Republicans walked away from the party because the cancer of Trumpism has metastasized so badly that it's unrecognizable, and it should burn to the ground. This iteration, this MAGA iteration of the Republican Party, it's never going back to the party of Reagan or George W. Bush, not as long as any of these people are still in power. So I think it needs to burn to the ground and something else needs to emerge, because we need a two-party system. Well, some people argue we need more parties, but you need at least two healthy parties so that you have different points of view and compromise. Like, that's how things are supposed to work. I mean, our founding fathers didn't want factions, is what they called them back then, because they were concerned about what's happening now and how parties have become the loyalty to party over country. But there are a lot of us who chose country over party. And whatever happens after this current iteration is burned to the ground and like thrown onto the ash heap of history, whatever emerges is something sane that's center right emerges. I'd happily be a part of that, and we can all go back to arguing over marginal tax rates. I welcome it. But until then, we are democracy defenders, and there is no compromising on that. All right, Susan Thompson, 5142. Cheers to Donald Trump having a very bad day. Amen to that, Susan. Amen to that. And with that, we got one more. We'll take one more. Leard 9834, $10. Thank you very much for Mary. Doesn't the whole hanging comment sound a bit regal? Doesn't want to be a king, yet yells off with their heads. We have a king and nobody would tolerate him saying stuff like that. Yes, that is correct. And actually, the choice of hanging, there's a lot of history in that too, with lynchings and all those kinds of things. And yes, going back to the old days with public hangings in the square, and it's just all awful and un-American, and we shouldn't tolerate it, and we won't. And with that, as we begin this Thanksgiving holiday week, where I hope all of you have a safe travels if you're traveling. I hope you all have a wonderful time with your families. I think it might be a little different this Thanksgiving with your MAGA uncle. I'd be very curious to see how they feel now. How do they feel now about a year into almost the new Donald Trump 2.0? Do they still think Donald Trump cares about them? Has he made their lives better? Be very curious. It's a very different environment this year than it was last year for Thanksgiving. My God, we have a lot to be hopeful for and a lot to look forward to and a lot of fighting still left in us to keep this country great, because this is what makes America great, not what they're doing. So with that, we're going to leave you with the emotional support moment, as traditionally we do on the Mary Trump live show. And I wish everyone a happy, healthy, and blessed Thanksgiving. Here's your emotional support moment.